What's going on, comunidad? And welcome to another episode of Mi Gente with your boy, CafeconLuis. So today, it's the last episode of the season. I'm super excited to have my guest today because we go way back to Brook days. And we actually started in a program that was about empowering men of color. So now he's killing it in the tech field. And, further ado, here is Drew Georges.
Thank you. So I guess last one, right?
Last one,
That feels like a lot of pressure.
I'm relieved. I'm relieved it's you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's been a beautiful experience, and I am blessed with just the people around me in my life and the things that we're all doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit. So if I haven't told you what he does, I'm sorry. So Drew, I'm so excited to have him here. That's why I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Drew works for a big tech company. Yeah. big tech company. Yeah. So Drew, I'll let you just take it over and just introduce and go for it.
Yeah. And before we get into that, shout out to Louis.
Thank you.
Like he mentioned, we met some years ago in college, and so to come back and see things kind of come full circle, I'm proud of you. Like, this is super dope. Like, this is first official production. Like it's a vibe, right? But shifting gears a little bit, Drew Georges from Brooklyn, New York.
Hey.
Shout out to Brooklyn.
Hey, we are in Brooklyn.
Yeah, shout out to Flatbush. I'm one of the Zoes, so shout out to the Zoes as well. But currently working at Google, like Louis mentioned, as a recruiter for software engineers. Guess quick story about that. I interned for Google back in 2016 through the Bold internship, which is one of their main internship programs. Okay. From there, you're surrounded by Ivy League kids, and essentially what happens when you intern at these top tech firms. A lot of imposter syndrome, but it was just 12 weeks of a grind. Right. Kind of in the product space, and so did the 12 weeks, came back full time. From there, I moved to Michigan to start my career because they were like, yo, we like you. We want you to come back full time. Because I did a junior internship. And they were like, the only catch is you got to leave New York, wow. Right? You got to move to the Midwest and go to Ann Arbor, Michigan, right?
Was that your first time in the Midwest?
Yeah, I think that was my first time in the Midwest.
Wow.
And I was 21, 22. And I think the added layer of complexity for me was that we didn't, we stayed at home for college. Mm-hmm. So on top of a new job, feeling like there's so much to learn, right. Being around people who are so elite. And of course, there was something that I brought to the table as well, but it's still
right.
kind of,
it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Because now you're here and you're like, shit, I've been thinking about this time and now
right.
I'm here.
And then now I'm living by myself, right? So just the little things about, where should I go to do the laundry and all this kind of stuff. I'm just like, at the same time of a new job. But fast forward a little bit. Year and a half later, was able to make the transition back to New York City, still kind of working on the product side. But then I identified that I really have a passion for people and driving people forward. And so I started to explore that a little bit, first through a people management position, right? I was a manager for 3 interns, which was really rewarding, right? Mm-hmm. In my 4 years, I'm almost 4 years at the company, I found that that was so it was such a refreshing experience. Yeah. And I was like, no, I can't ignore that feeling. Sometimes your intuition, right? Mm-hmm. you have an experience, you're like, no, I need to dive a little bit deeper. Mm-hmm. Similar to what you were saying before we got on camera about, moving to Brooklyn, and you're like, okay, cool, I want to explore, this a little bit more. Right. And that kind of led to the production that we're seeing today. So I wanted to kind of explore people a little bit more. And then from there, transition to the people operations side of the company via internal mobility, mm-hmm.
which
is a journey within itself. And we won't, I won't bore you all too much about it, but essentially internal mobility is just the Google has kind of different roles that you can apply for as an employee. Okay. And traditionally what we've seen, which is one of the cool things that I like about Google, though, is challenging. Traditionally what we've seen is like people go back to school to make that career pivot. Like I need to go get my MBA to go into, this particular industry, whatever, right? And I'm also, not suggesting that this is like a one-to-one comparison.
We're not sponsored by Google. Yeah. We'll just say that. This is just Andrew talking.
But through internal mobility, was able to kind of move to the people side, and now I'm just kind of exploring that journey, right? Taking it head on, and my first stop was kind of on the recruiting side for software engineers. And
did you know anything about software engineering?
And that's it. It was so the first 90 days. Of the role, it was intense because it's a totally different skill set, right? The way impact was measured on my previous teams was, by being super meticulous and deliberate about all of the deliverables, right? On the recruiting side, it's such a volume type of game, and software engineers right now, especially, they really have the leverage. So there's almost like a sales component to it that I'm learning as well, right?
You're truly being interviewed by them.
Yeah, I'm being interviewed by them, and going into the role, I thought it was going to be a little bit, not suggesting that it's hard to sell Google, but I think like I had this idea of a profile, right, of someone who is just super happy to talk to Google. And while they are happy to talk to Google, they're engineers. So they know that they bring like some kind of unique value to the table, right? Like coding in Java, JavaScript, Python. I'm a little traumatized saying these things right now, but being able to code, you already identify that, you bring something special to the table. And so the conversation is a little bit different. It definitely helps to have that brand name, right?
100%.
Of Google.
You're kind of like
that is, the I think the holy grail for a lot of engineers is what I'm learning. But it did come with a bit of a twist because I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like you have options. You could go to Facebook. You could go to Uber. You could do all these different things. And so it's about, authentically, which is another thing we spoke about, authentically being myself in that environment. But trying to reel them in as well. Right.
I mean, if y'all can't see, he has style. Man has style. Man's always has style.
Yeah,
and one thing that I love is that you're so unapologetic about it. Because I feel that, especially for men of color, you're going into a corporate setting and you feel that you have to wear a suit and tie. And if you don't wear a suit and tie, then you're doing business casual, and that's like jeans and like a polo. But for you go at the beat of your own drum. And I love that about you. And I think that's so unique in having, because so many people don't know how to do that. So how did you approach it? Like obviously it's just you, but how have you gone about it in a corporate space?
Yeah, first off, thank you, humbled. Fashion appraisal from the fashion god himself, what I mean? It's definitely one for the books. But I would say, similar to my experience going from, the internship to where I'm at now at Google, this has also been a journey. Because there were a lot of moments where I was doubting myself, where I was doubting, what I thought made me weird. Only recently realizing like, oh, no, this is the what I bring to the table. This is my niche. I need to capitalize on this. I need to double down on this, right? And so in short, I think it was just having enough experiences or having enough feelings of like, I'm not fully being me. Something feels off, like I might be in an environment and I know I could do something or say something or dress a certain way, but let's go to like, family functions, right?
Yes.
Like family functions. I might try to, wear this shirt that way instead of the way that I really want to, because I'm just so concerned about other people's perceptions. And I think similar to, we were talking about fitness before this, similar to fitness where, you just get enough reps in and you can become comfortable with the exercise that you're doing. I just had to get enough reps in of feeling uncomfortable. And then it was all hell broke loose.
That's
so
it.
now it's
I love it.
Now, and it's so funny, I got to a point where my mom, you know, I find humor in these situations, right? Because I have family members that are more conservative, right. And so, you know, now I'll call up my mom and just be like, yo, you know, do you want to help me pick out my earrings for the Thanksgiving? You know what I mean? And my mom's like, yo, you're a troubled kid, man. You know?
Bob, you're my kid though.
Yeah. So now it's like just finding humor in it. And then when, you know, you run into those obstacles or when you run into that friction, just taking it head on, because at the end of the day, you know, there's, I think we're up to like 9 billion, 10 billion people, don't quote me on that, in the world, but,
you can fact check.
It's cool. Google it. Right?
I see that.
You know, the point is, there's a lot of people in this world, but everybody has that 0.0000001% difference. And if you could just identify, like, what is that difference, even if it's something as simple as like, I like my pineapple on pizza, right? You were talking about pizza earlier.
Yes.
Even if it's something as simple as that, right?
I fuck with that though.
Yeah, just something super that, you know, it seems like a simple concept, but something as simple as that, just keep going with it, right. Even when it, you know, it seems gray, it doesn't make sense. Just lean into it, because you never know, like, what, you know, where it'll get you. Yeah. And even this conversation, like, I'll kind of just end here, but I think me leaning into embracing myself and what I bring to the table is arguably what allowed us to connect, so I can sit here today. Because let's say I had not posted on Instagram, or, you know,
I was gonna find you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, you know,
I was gonna find you through your text.
But I think being, and I was having this conversation with a friend the other day, is just like expressing yourself.
Right.
It draws a certain energy. So you see the outfits, you know, you might see me doing what feels fun to me, and you're like, yo, like, you know, it'd be a good time to like reconnect. Yeah. But had I not done that, had I kind of just, you know, succumb to...
You're putting me on the spot right now? No. I feel like a little pressure. I was like, wait,
in other words, what I'm saying is this connection is way overdue, right? No, I'm just kidding.
That's a fact.
I'm just kidding. But the point is, right, jokes aside, like, leaning into who you are, you know, you attract the right crowd. You attract the right energy. And so once I identified, you know, in conclusion to your question, like, once I identified that, like, yo, I'm either going to live for somebody else or I'm going to live for me. And, you know, I made the commitment to live for me, and it's just, you know, continuing to do it, still being considerate of others, because you don't want to just go super far left. Right. We still live in a society, and you should try your best to collaborate with people, but not at the expense of your identity. Right.
I think that's so real, especially, you know, kind of a thread between all the conversations has been the last couple of years. Yeah. And how intense it's been, and how ugly it's been. You know, I think that it's like opening the pot. I was just talking to one of the guests the other day. It's like opening the pot when your mom's cooking and you want to smell all the good things, except this time it wasn't good things happening. You know what I mean? It was bad. Yeah. For you, you know, that you really cultivated your uniqueness and you've leaned into that, right? Because that's so important in just individuals, right? Yeah. But within the last couple of years, how have you navigated the, you know, because at the end of the day, like, I feel that you are not the Black community. Right? You are part of the Black community. You are a Black man. Yeah. But how have you navigated through these spaces, and where at times maybe you're the only Black folk there? Yeah. The only time it's, sometimes even you could be in a room full of people of color, but they just don't get your struggle, or they don't understand you. How have you been able to kind of lean into your uniqueness and stay true to yourself throughout the last couple of years?
Yeah, that's a heavy loaded.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
loaded question, but I love it. And I would say, you know, the short answer is there's always different phases that you kind of go through, right? And in phase one, let's say, for example, out of college, you hold on to something that kind of allows you to keep going forward. In phase two, when you're maybe a young adult, there's something else that's kind of, you know, that you're kind of using as fuel to your fire to keep going. So for right now, I would say, you know, what I'm holding on to is a little bit of what I said earlier, right? Just identifying that, like, yo, this is actually, like, you need to do this. Like, this is what you uniquely bring to the table, right? And keeping the the goal in mind, like legacy in mind. Like I can't get to those, I can't get to the blueprint that I've kind of defined for myself. I can't carve out the lanes that I want to carve if I'm constantly, toggling back and forth between living for somebody else versus like living for me, right? So I think it's just about to the best of my abilities, and of course there's no perfect solution. That's why I broke it up into phases, right? There's not one thing that for the last 6 years I'm like, oh, this is this is the secret, right? Just drink some water. And, we're not
selling juju, like how to get rich quick.
Our sponsor is tea. Right?
No sponsors. We are the sponsors.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's just about leaning into what resources you have during that phase that you're in, holding on to something and, just not looking back, right? Like trying to have that community, surrounding yourself with the people that will uplift you, and just let the rest go, let the rest go and just I don't know, man.
What you're saying is real.
I'm happy I'm kind of in this headspace. Again, it's not a perfect solution. And, every day, like we're human, right? So there's an ebb and flow. Right. There's gonna be some day, like tomorrow, I might go to work and be like, man, like this is just a tough day. I'm a total fraud. Everything that I was saying to Lewis is like, I don't believe any of those things today. But just embracing that and just keep going. Keep the legacy in mind. Stick to the phase that you're in or whatever is helping you while you're in that phase. And just, I don't know, don't look back.
Listen. Don't look back isn't doing bad for you. So now as we wrap up this first half before we go into our second half,
sure.
I really kind of, you've shared so many great things that people can take away from you, you know what I mean? Just your ethos. I think your ethos is very refreshing because there's so much that goes on in our lives that, and people are always like, this is my ethos. I live by this. And I love that you're always evolving and changing because you understand that. That's a hard thing to kind of come to terms with, that life changes and your passions can change and you can go about things differently.
Right.
But for you that you're here now, it sounds so simple. Just hang out with the right people, fuck these people, do this, I'm gonna wear this. But like, how for some people it's just harder, it's just taking that leap. And we've all been there on like that leap and where you just do it.
Sure.
So how can what are some of your suggestions, right? This is not a fact check. This is not like what you need to do to get to Drew, but like, what do you suggest as those tough conversations with family, those tough conversations with friends? Like, how did you navigate those hard moments of just letting go?
Yeah, well, I hate to be kind of like a broken record, so I won't harp on this for too much, but I think, for me, it was, even when I didn't know what I was doing, the common denominator was I made a commitment to live that legacy. I made a commitment to carve my own path, and I was just gonna go through all the different hoops that required me. You know what I mean? Like that I was required to go through. Like I go to family events and they're like, oh, locks are for, women, or, why do you have braids? Because before I had the locks, I had braids, right? To try and grow it out and avoid that ugly phase, right?
Like me and my beard right now. Yeah, I get it.
And it was tough. It's still tough. Because you're going against the grain, you're doing things that don't feel normal to other people, and that's a hard thing to cope with. But I think like if there's just awareness around that, acknowledgement, and just like a unbreakable fear to just like keep going, then you really don't have any other option, right?
Right.
And if you do have. If let's say you are kind of faced with this thought of, okay, well, I'm done being this way, and I want to start living somebody else's truth. Sit with that for a day or two, a week, a month. Try it out. Like see how it's actually working for you, and then you're gonna have data from real life experiences.
I see where you're going at. Yeah.
You're gonna have data from real life experiences that will serve as the because remember earlier I was saying in the different phases you need something to hold on to.
Right.
Well, maybe in the phase that you're in right now, data from real life experiences can be something that you're holding on to. So if you, I don't like to talk about concepts without examples. Right. Let's say you want to be sober and you don't want to drink alcohol, right? Go against that, right? Assuming there's no kind of like major consequences or religious reasons or all that kind of stuff, right? And it's just more of a personal thing. Right. Go against that. Go out with friends and drink and see how you feel, right? For a week or 2 weeks, a month, however long it takes. In moderation, right? Like I'm not suggesting responsibly, drink responsibly, right?
And only if you're over 21, please.
And only if you're over 21, of course, right?
Yes.
That was the assumption because you shouldn't be going to bars if you're not.
Right? No, especially if you go to school in the city. Don't do it. What are you doing?
But that could be an experience for you. And after you do it, some people, time weighs differently, or I don't even know if time is a weight, but time looks differently for different people, right? Some people have relationships and in 6 months you're closer than ever. In a week, you might feel like you knew this person when you were a childhood, right? So however long it takes you, just reflect on that experience. Come home, drink your water so you can feel better the next day and just carve out time. Okay, what was that experience like? Do I want to like continue to go down this path of like what somebody else wants me to do, or do I want to live my own truth? And I think just to kind of wrap it up, going back to what I said about the 0.00001% uniqueness, like you can be yourself without trying. Right?
Authenticity.
Yeah, like it's second nature. You can just do these things and the uniqueness, right? The 0.001% that you bring to the table, that in theory should be able to happen without effort, right? If you try and live somebody else's lifestyle, though, that's going to be a lot harder.
You're going to learn real quick.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot harder. Yeah. And that's actually why I made the switch from a more technical space or a more technical role to a people role, because I was real with myself. I'm like, I can study the products, I can do all of this, but like, that's not aligned to my skill sets that I'm trying to develop. Right. It's not aligned to who I am. It's not aligned to the direction that I'm trying to go in. And so I could invest so many hours into trying to be like this product consultant because that's what you're supposed to do, or, whatever other title feels sexy. Yeah. But if it's not something that comes natural to you, you're essentially, I really don't like to make blanket statements, but you're wasting time because you're never going to be as good as with that particular venture as somebody who it just kind of feels it in them. Right. Similarly, this journey that I'm on, I'm hoping to identify something that I'm just incredibly great at. And then once you lean into it, it's like no one can compete with you. There's no competition because you're in your own lane. Yeah, you're in your own lane, right? Like you're doubling down on that unique value that you bring to the table. So, in terms of tangible things, it's like trying to be someone different for a period of time. See how that goes for you. And then, write some things down about what do you enjoy, like what was the lifestyle that you're trying to live. I mean, that's how I kind of went into tech, coming from a school that was so notorious for business and finance, right? I kind of wrote down, okay, these are the lifestyle that I want to live. I didn't even know what I was doing at the time. To me, I was just like, man, this like, what are you, you're just kind of wasting your time, but I just stuck it through, right? Like I didn't really know what any of that meant, but I was like, I don't really want to be in an environment where people are telling me like I got to shave and all this kind of stuff, right? Which is not necessarily everyone's experience in finance,
right.
and it's not exclusive to finance. It can happen outside of finance,
everywhere.
but that was what I was seeing through my lens, right? Like the people that I was around, everyone who was aspiring to go into, financial services. That was the realities that they were living, right? And of course, I still had to be polished up for my own interviews, but it felt like I could be me a little bit more, comparatively. Whatever that means in corporate.
I think what we're just getting started. As you can see, we talk a lot. So tune in for part 2.
So
but
the concrete thing, right? Is the not to cut you off, but I want to make sure there's like something tangible. But yeah, just try to not be you for a little bit and see how that feels. And then just the exercise of writing down like, oh, okay, this is what I enjoy. This is, I want to have this kind of lifestyle with 2 cars or whatever the case may be. And then, you kind of reverse engineer the process, right? And you're like, okay, cool. Well, to get here, I need to do X, Y, and Z thing. And then, should be. Yeah.
No, what I love that is that you're really taking in components that I believe in. So I truly believe in manifesting. Yep. Manifesting is so real. Like you don't even realize, to your point. Yes. 2 is growth hacking, which is the process of trying new iterations and new things. That could be something you can copy and paste in work, in your life, to your point. Yep. Just try to live the life that you want to live one day, which that was my 3rd thing, and where it's like, experience the life that you want to live. Because you can't keep dreaming of hopes if you don't know what it tastes like or what it feels like. Right. Because you can get there and you'll be like, oh, this is not what I wanted.
Yep.
But everybody, this is Drew Georges. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. So blessed. We will have to bring him back, obviously. But for now, just tune into our second part on our podcast. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you again to Louis. Shout out to you, man. This is super dope.